We have got a great treat for you now. Our next speaker tackling this question of why innovate and why now is Don Meij. He's the CEO of Domino's. He's an entrepreneur. He wasn't always an entrepreneur, and I'm not going to tell you anything else because he's going to do a great job describing his own story. So join me in welcoming Don Meij, the CEO of Domino's here in Australia.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody, and thank you to the Premier for inviting me to speak today to what is a great event for Queensland. I'm going to just talk a little bit briefly, first of all. I've got 30 minutes, and I'm going to speak a little bit about my history and the history of our company, because for a lot of people, Domino's, wasn't that originally an American brand? How is an ASX-listed company? What does that all mean, and is it in other countries? And then I'm going to talk a little bit of what we learnt and why we've become disruptive in our space and what it means for us, and give some little insights to what makes us tick, so what drives the innovation. And then I'm just going to close off on some of the benefits of being a big fish in a small pond, which is, I think, we're the fourth largest ASX listed company here in Queensland, and how that's been a big asset for us in the way that we're disrupting and changing things. So I started as a pizza delivery driver 29 years ago in a place called Redcliffe, just north here in Brisbane. And I was starting to be a high school teacher, got towards the end of my degree, realised I didn't want to teach, and I took a job in this little business called Silvio's Pizza, which was pioneered here in Brisbane, first pizza delivery company in Australia. And I thought I'd be going back to university, but before I knew it, I was an operations manager, and I became a small shareholder in this little company, Silvio's. In 1993, Domino's came for sale in Australia out of its third liquidation. Like a lot of global businesses go global, not understanding the local market, and while we dress and sound a little American, and we look probably one of the closest to an American culture, we're still very different, obviously. And for those fundamental reasons, Domino's failed initially. So when we bought Domino's, we actually thought we might even turn it into Silvio's. And I went down to Sydney, ran the Domino's business for a couple of years. And then we had to make a decision, should we be Silvio's or Domino's? And being part of what was actually a great concept, if it could be applied locally, we thought it would be significant. And if we were going to take on much bigger competition, we thought that we should become part of an international group. So we converted all our stores, our Silvio's stores, into Domino's stores, still owned and operated here out of Australia, but using the Domino's brand. And at that same time, I went out and franchised. And I grew to 17 stores over 5 years throughout southeast Queensland, from Toowoomba, the Sunshine Coast, and Brisbane. And in 2001, I was able to merge those 17 stores in with another franchisee. His name's Grant Burke, who's on our board today. And with his stores and my stores, we bought 25% of Domino's Pizza Australia in 2001, and I became the CEO a few months after that. Now, in that period, we learned a lot. When we actually we took on was other international competition to become the market leader, because in 2001 we only had 174 stores. A player ahead of us called Pizza Haven had 280, and Pizza Hut in Australia had 427 stores. And 2 years later we became the market leader, which was quite incredible. And we learnt that differentiation is the custodian of profit, and that is in a very commoditized space where things look kind of normalised. You know, if you're an alien and you looked at the Australian pizza market in 2001, doesn't everybody sell a Supreme and meat lovers? Who's got the best price? Who can I access? Who's the nearest pizza shop to me? You know, really commoditised environment. But we were able to become the market leader with very aggressive and disruptive behaviour, which meant that, we became the market leader by 2003. We therefore decided to go into New Zealand. Within 2 years, we were the market leader in New Zealand, toppling competition that had been there for 2 decades. We listed the company in 2005 on the stock exchange for $120 million. And in 2006, we entered France, the Netherlands, and Belgium. When we arrived in France, we were the number 3 player. Today, we're 3 times bigger than any pizza company in France, second biggest pizza market in the world. Brisbane-based, Queensland pizza company is the biggest pizza company in France. We arrived in the Netherlands, number 2, we're now number 1. We're number 2 in Belgium today. And then we acquired 75% of Japan, the rights to Japan, in coming up to 3 years ago. We arrived as a number 3 player. Today we're the biggest pizza company in Japan. And a few months ago we acquired the rights to Domino's Germany. And in that case we bought the market leader and we're converting it to Domino's. But the long story short is we're now in 7 countries, and We have today 1,925 stores. In fact, by the end of June, we'll be over 2,000 stores, so we're growing very, very quickly. We employ about 48,000 people around the world, and we're, as I said, the market leader in 6 of the 7 countries that we operate. We have network sales now of around 2 billion Australian dollars. We have a market cap of around about 5.5 billion Australian dollars. So we're around in the 60s for the biggest ASX listed company in the 100. And what's really interesting is that of transactions online in Australia, Domino's Pizza is 2.3% of transactions online. That's bizarre. That's strange. You know, a pizza company is that many transactions. And interestingly, 44% of food transacted online is Domino's Pizza. That's also really, really strange but exciting. It shows that what we do connects with consumers, and humans are humans, and that connectivity is global. You know, iPhones sell in just about every country in the world, or Samsung and so on. Technology is very global. So the technology we create here in Brisbane, largely nearly all of the technology is created here and shipped to the world. So when I talk about that, we were inspired early on by car manufacturing. And if you look at the Volkswagen Group will create a chassis, a gearbox, an engine, and some electronics. And then that is skinned into a Volkswagen, an Audi, a Seat, a Skoda, parts are in Lamborghinis and Bentleys. But the real engineering cost happens in the smarts, the intellectual properties of what makes that vehicle as clever as it is, starts in that core. And so using that same inspiration, we build the ideas. I'm going to talk about where the ideas come from, but we build the ideas here, largely in Brisbane, and then we literally have a gap list to make it Japanese, French, Dutch, Belgian, German, and so on. And that gap list could be a 20% factor for Japan, or it could be a 10% factor for the Netherlands or Germany. And that just makes it so efficient for us, because it means that we can, literally our ideas are exportable and they're market leading. We turn them on in countries, and they're the biggest driver of why we're the market leader today in each of these countries, and what's so compelling to our future forward. So if I just talk about our consumer insights. So our consumer insights come from tensions. They're tensions that we get from our customers, or they're tensions inside the business. So I want to take you on a little journey quickly of how a tension starts as something, and then it leads to something really, really big for our business. So in 2008, we had a new government in Australia, and our labour system changed, and what was called award modernisation, and this is the last year of award modernisation in Australia. And one of the things that was a big part of award modernisation is the cost of delivering in cars was going to become prohibitive for us. Now, that's probably not a bad idea, because why do we have 1.5 and 2 ton vehicles delivering a couple of kilograms of food? It's clearly inefficient. It's just not good for anybody in society for that to take place. And ironically, outside of Australia and New Zealand and parts of North America, most food delivery in the world are delivered on motorbikes or bicycles, efficient ways to deliver food. The downside in Australia is we're not a bike culture. So we didn't want to go from one evil of cars to a worse evil in that we would hurt people on bikes. So we decided to do tests with putting a GPS tracker inside our motorbikes. And what we found is that we were able to reduce incidents by 60%. 2 leading factors, speed, obviously, and harshness of driving. Number one is almost as close as speeding or more than is harshness of driving. So when we were able to monitor that, we could reduce incidents by 60%, and then the harshness of those incidents that were remaining were far less severe. So that was a big win for us and a justification to get into bikes. But then what we also found that surprised us is we improved the productivity of our drivers. And put in perspective, Australia has the highest labour rates for Domino's in the world out of 80 countries. So when you save the productivity is so important, and in today's society, it's a major driver of business as it competes globally. Our productivity improved by 20%, which was just outstanding. And why did it improve? Because actually our drivers are getting lost. Actually our drivers are going in inefficient directions and not taking the most direct routes during traffic conditions and so on. And then, inspired by Uber, we thought the transparency would be something we should take to customers. We've been pretty good at sharing what we're doing with customers. So the whole idea that Pizza Tracker, which I'll also share in a second, is watched, according to Google, for about 7 to 8 minutes by the average consumer. We have Pizza Tracker, which we invented in 2007 here in Australia and now used by nearly everywhere in the world for Domino's, Consumers watch, it does 4 things, and they watch it for 7 or 8 minutes. Because there's an amazing thing, consumer insight, when you're hungry, when you order a pizza, you're hungry already. And, glucose levels are off, people get cranky, there's this whole anticipation curve that people go through, very real. And by giving transparency, it empowers the customer to be able to do things with their time. So when we launched, unlike watching a car coming towards you, actually food coming towards you has a heightened urgency. And so we then made it a social media piece where the driver now coming to your door, the music they're listening to in the car, their favourite pizza, their favourite sporting team. We've got polls. We may even predict this election, we think, and that we'll be polling that daily. Live consumer data, and all sorts of political questions that we can potentially have fun in a Domino's way playing with. We're not political, but hey, why not have some fun with some data that the market's interested in? And then the biggest breakthrough of all, so imagine a safety program is leading to all of this. The biggest breakthrough of all is that a 56-year-old concept, Domino's is 56-year-old as a concept. We actually got 2 new data points from GPS that changed our business globally. These 2 new data points taught us and broke theories we had in the business about how we were delivering. And in fact, we were pretty inefficient. That there was assumptions about how long, because our data told us, we talked about a drive time. We thought our drive time was 8 or 9 minutes. But because now we were checking it, leaving, and when the driver physically drove away, we were connecting, we found out our drive times were only 5 or 6 minutes. And in fact, we were spending 3 minutes in the car park. And then we had our rack time, which is when the pizza comes out of the oven and before it leaves the store even, that rack time was 6 minutes, which was a time we didn't have a measure on before. So before you know it, we're spending more time on the rack and in the car park than we're on the road. And yet, you need to know, we are already the fastest delivery business in Australia. We already are more than 30% faster than our competitors. So yet, we were that inefficient. And then it led to the idea, well, what about our ovens? Our ovens are the same technology for the last 30 years. With new technology, the Internet of Things, could we use convection ovens but smart? So we could, with radiating heat and compression heat, we could actually cook more efficiently and get a better outcome of the product, but we could also take 3 or 4 minutes out of the cook time. And so we came up with a model called slower it matters, faster it counts. Slower it matters is you want us to know we're making your pizza fresh and we're not changing that. You want to know that slower it matters is we're going to drive safely to you and we're safest we've ever been in our history. And we want to spend the right amount of time at the door. For some people, it's just give me my pizza and thank you. I'm still looking at my iPhone. But for other people, they may not have met a human being in 2 or 3 days. So why not have a chat at the door? So that's slower it matters. But faster it counts is a faster oven. Faster it counts is why do we have this rack time? Now we've got drivers loading straight into the hot bag. And why are we taking 2 or 3 minutes in the car park? With electric bikes parked at the door, we're on the road within seconds. And we've taken a 23-minute delivery model into 10-minute delivery. The New Farm store here is the first pizza store in the world to deliver in 10 minutes and is now the model for our whole business. Because in the age of the internet, in the age of the amount of things that we can access so quickly, we all know the last mile is the most expensive and the hardest. And at Domino's, we're conquering that. And it started with a GPS driver tracker. So disruption has been in our DNA. It's how we think, and it started with how we've been able to go into all these markets and become the market leaders so quickly. And when we travel, we don't travel as Australians necessarily, we travel as entrepreneurs with a business model. Yet a lot of the thinking is created here, and most of the thinking is created here. But I want to talk about when we first got into technology in a big way back in 2006. For most retailers in Australia, and the reason retailers struggled in Australia is most retailers entered the internet ordering platforms by 2001. And in HTML, the original internet, most people just posted menus online in catalogs. And the consumer said, well, what's the point? I'm already getting those. What's different about this? And it was clicky and clunky to want to place an order. But by 2006, with broadband speed skyrocketing and with Flash, where you could do visual videos when you bring food alive, we thought it was the time to enter online ordering. And to be honest, we entered and we were 1% of our sales, and year 2 was 2% of our sales. But we had a really big insight. And it came back to the first real big tension we ever dealt with was that when I order a pizza, when will it arrive? The reality is, if you ask people in focus groups when they're having brownies and coffee, 45 minutes an hour doesn't really matter. It's got to be a great pizza. That's what counts. But when you ask someone when they've just placed a pizza order, time is everything. And when we look at millions and millions and millions of transactions, the quicker we deliver and the more transparent we are with our delivery process, the faster and more frequently customers will order. So knowing this anticipation, we used to videotape it. People literally getting pissed off with the time. Because is it going to arrive in 20 minutes? It's going to arrive in 45 minutes? When it's going to arrive? And so what we did is we literally, the first big insight is we simply told the customer what we were doing. First of all, Australians did not trust the internet in that, did you even get my order? I'm hungry. That's the first tension. Because you know what? Before 2006, a lot of stuff went into cyberspace. And with Amazon, it didn't matter. They get it to you in 2 weeks. They'll figure it out in 2 weeks. And if they didn't, you'd find out in 2 weeks. But with a pizza, you're now hungry, you need to know. So we told you straight away, we got your order. Well, thank God they got my order. That was huge. Now we're making your order. It's fresh, it's on the make line. We're making it fresh to order. Now it's in the oven, it's cooking. Now it's out of the oven, it's ready to go. It's either ready for pickup or it's on the road for delivery. 7 to 8 minutes, the anticipation of watching that, that 4 things. And that was big, and now it's used by Domino's all over the world. So a consumer insight, a real tension, it was the foundation of that idea. And those tensions have led to be many things. You know, the smartphone, the invention of the iPhone, and why we led that, we were the second app in the world, the pizza app in the world on the iPhone. And to put it into perspective, here's this little old Brisbane company serving 23 million people back in 2009. And we were beat actually by Pizza Hut in the US. 330 million people and 20 million illegals were actually used that app, and the amount of orders they got in 3 months, we achieved in 2 months here in Australia with this little population, because we nailed it. We nailed it around the real tensions. We nailed it on the consumer insights of why people would want to do it. Originally, people were loading it with games, and the original iPhone, you had to plug it into your laptop and download the app. I mean, it was ridiculous. You could download our app. You had Pizza Tracker. You had 1.2 million variations of food that you could vary on your app, and it was so easy, and it took off like a rocket. So then we had Pizza Chef, which is you can build your own. That was a huge success. And now our vision of being anywhere, anytime, and making it more and more accessible means that we're just continuing to drive, and we're nearly always first to market, both here and now in other markets that we've created with our product here with this thinking. And do we get every single one of them right? Not necessarily, but the consumer knows that we're at least, when you buy a new platform or you're engaging in a new way, the most frustrating thing, you just got the iPad Pro, but what can you do with it? Apple's told you what you can do with it, but what can you actually do with it? But actually having apps that adapt and are appropriate and are useful means a lot to the consumer, and therefore it gets incredible loyalty and a commitment that Domino's is trying and being part of my life. So, one of the great things about our business is that we are a big fish in a relatively small global pond here in Queensland. And one of the great things is our people is that not everybody wants to live somewhere else in the world. Australians like living in Australia, and Queenslanders like living here. In fact, other Australians like living here too. We have a great lifestyle here in Queensland. So one of the things is that we've drawn talent back to Brisbane. So we've got our CIO, for example, spent half his career in global markets of Japan and Asia and so on, and wanted to get back to Brisbane, and very, very talented man who now builds all of our technology. He and his team build all of our technology. But we also have amazing universities here in Queensland. So we commonly now run Hackfests, and we drill down to get very, very talented engineers and designers here in Brisbane that we're building and growing our team. So today we're north of 60 digital operators here in Brisbane, and that will be north of 100 within the next 12 months as this just speeds up and speeds up. So we've been very, very fortunate, and I think that, as I said, not every kid wants to go to Silicon Valley or Canary Wharfs or Israel. I mean, this is an amazing place to live, and we've had to create an environment that is a little bit more Google-esque up here in Brisbane. So we do have soft serve Fridays, and there's pinball machines and Space Invader machines and free pizza whenever you want it, and interesting hours of work. So in that, we also have had to learn to be lean and agile. So how do you innovate? One of the most interesting things for me is that it seems so obvious how you'll commercialize things, because I'm an entrepreneur who we listen to our consumers. But what ends up happening when you enter the space of innovation is people get bogged down in building it right rather than finding the right its and getting the right its to market. And you need to build structures. Too many people want to overcomplicate things. And I always try to share that, a picture says 1,000 words. The smartest person in the room is the one who convinced the most people with an idea, not the one who brings out 20 spreadsheets or diagrams and everyone's sitting there going, I've got no idea what that guy just said, and I'm not giving that guy one bit of money, or that lady one piece of money, because it's just too hard. So we've become very, very good at being able to cipher consumer tensions, putting more and more data points to see new insights, and then building it in a very productive way, which is very Domino's today in a lean and agile environment. We've also become really good at killing off ideas early and breaking things, and as soon as we see success, building it. We haven't had a failed promotion now in a number of years, or launch, or tech launch, because by the time we get it to market, we've prototyped it, we've minimal viable product, and it's to market. And in that prototyping phase, some things are killed for hundreds of dollars, a couple of $1,000s, versus in the old days, you might have built something for $1 million and it didn't even work. So we've become really good at that. That's being a big part of our culture. But we are innovating beyond digital now. We have our own electric bike that's been modified and designed. It's an ugly bike, in my opinion, but it's a safer bike. It has, it's got like anti-slip for wet. I mean, here's an electric bike with, anti-slip. It's GPS tracked. It will soon be smart enough that it will tell the driver to go left and right by buzzing on the handlebars and things like that. And it's really efficient. It costs us $2.20 just for the delivery cost, forget the labour costs, to deliver in a car. These things are 27 cents per delivery. So it's green, it's efficient. It's allowed us to deliver in neighbourhoods we weren't allowed to deliver in because the government would close us down at 9 o'clock for obvious reasons of a quiet neighbourhood. But with electric bikes, they're silent, they're safe, it's been fantastic, and they're green. We moved into ovens, as I mentioned earlier. We developed our own oven, eventually went to a global supplier, and then used some of our tech learning to launch that oven, which is now improving all of our times. And that's moving into the Internet of Things. With all this data, the challenge is the human beings can only consume so much data, but can equipment start making decisions on behalf of the manager to make things more productive, more efficient, for better yields, to also notify alerts to even our team members soon through team member apps, and so on. So it's more automated, and the manager can focus on doing the right things by the customer and their team members and not having to do all this less productive things, yet bring all the value to the business. And finally, more recently, we launched our D-Lab here in Brisbane. And the D-Lab is to take us into another space again, in that beyond software, as we start working with physical things and we start going into new spaces with other startups and small businesses, is how do we have a confidential environment we can build and visualize this thing. And soon we'll have the technology to literally be like live, bringing this into each of the countries. So other countries are in our lab here in Brisbane as we're developing things. And as many of you know, and you may have seen over the last couple of days, and you'll get to see him again, or it again, is our Drew. So Drew is the first real innovation that's in development that's come out of the Love Lab. Sorry, out of the D Lab. Love Lab is our food kitchen, Pizza Love. It's just another lab we have. It's very productive. But yeah, Drew is the first real product to begin to come out of the D Lab. And Drew stands for Domino's Robotic Unit, and Drew stands for a lot more than the insights that we're gaining here from a delivery vehicle. Number one, we're very inspired that robotics are coming anyway. Anyone who puts their head in the sand, they're kidding themselves. It's coming. We have a choice as Australians, as Queenslanders. Either we can rent this from the rest of the world, or we can own a big chunk of this pipeline and create the jobs here. And move the jobs, definitely, in the future we'll have less delivery drivers, but move it into other parts that Drews have to be serviced. They have to be monitored. Even though they're automated, they still have to have a control room. The software that's being developed behind Drew on an ongoing basis just doesn't stop, the AI. And in fact, the first time the public gets to physically engage with Drew, the robotics will be our AI. And that is our virtual assistant inside our technology that will aid and help, and through bots and other things will actually be your engagement. So you'll meet Drew's personality through digital before you meet Drew, most likely as a robot. Even though Drew is doing some deliveries in Hamilton, as he did in the last couple of days, and we hope to soon again. So as we sort of conquer some of the big grounds that we need to with Drew. So in closing, I'm going to bring Drew up onto the stage and I'm going to answer some questions, but I just want to show you a video of the development of Drew to give you an insight to some of the culture in the business.
It all began in 2015 with a microchip and a massive idea. What if we could transform the way we delivered pizza to dramatically improve safety and efficiency while completely changing the game of the customer experience? What if we could harness the power of Domino's GPS tracking data and our artificial intelligence technology, then combine it with one of the world's most advanced robotic units? What if we could create the world's first autonomous pizza delivery vehicle? The seeds of the idea were developed at Domino's and incubated in our purpose-built innovation space, D-Lab. It was here that we started work on a Domino's robotic unit. Using a base unit sourced from the military and powered by technology from Australian startup company Marathon Robotics, we improvised, we explored, and we discovered that this audacious idea could actually become a reality. At the same time, we engaged the country's leading industrial design firm to design the look, feel and functionality of our latest recruit. The design had to be unlike anything ever seen before. From dozens of concepts, we selected one, and the Domino's robotic unit, or Drew for short, was born. After months of engineering, building and testing, the big day arrived. It was time for Drew to hit the streets. The first test may be over, but the journey has just begun. It's now a race against our competitors and against the clock. A race to be first in the food space with this revolutionary technology. A race where coming second is not an option.
It's so exciting to be here. Delivery.
The world's first autonomous pizza delivery vehicle. Domino's robotic unit, Drew, is leading us into the future.
So thank you very much, everybody. And I understand we've run out of time, so I'm on a panel tomorrow, so I can answer some questions there. And
Oh, absolutely. But
you.
join me in thanking Ray again. That was just, or Dom, in fact, I'm going to call him because that's his name.
Thank you.
Thank you
Premier
so
Zach.
much.
Thank you.
And how happy are we that he didn't end up a high school teacher, but instead, which would have been a great job, obviously, would have changed the world. But here he's got to live the dream, you know, build his empire out of pizza and have his own robot. Fantastic. And all that for a boy from Redcliffe. Girl from Sandgate, something about the north there. Congratulations, and thanks everyone for your enthusiasm here. That's just been so much fun and such a great story. Our very last speaker of the day, and as Don said, he'll be here tomorrow, so if you've got any questions, he's very happy to chat with you then. Our very last speaker of the day is Roger Leaning, who's the Director of Corporate Advisory at Morgans, and if you were at either of those spectacular life sciences and biotech sessions that we had earlier, Morgan sponsored those, so thanks, Drew. No, it's been great. No, you are. You're the best. Yeah. Very shy, just heading off stage now. Great that Morgans was able to bring us those life sciences technology innovation sessions. Roger Leaning, Director of Corporate Advisory there. His background is in metallurgical engineering. Long story. Roger's going to do a bit of a snapshot bringing together of the day for us and share some of his own insights into innovation. So join me in welcoming Roger Leaning. Thanks, Roger.
Thanks, Bernie, and thank you for everybody your attendance. I know it's late in the afternoon and there's drinks waiting for us, so I promise I'll only keep you a few minutes. A pretty hard act to follow Drew and Don, but look, one extremely inspiring way to actually finish the day on with Don and what Domino's have done. We at Morgans are very proud to be a sponsor here at this Innovation Summit, and we congratulate and commend the Queensland Government for the initiative, because it is absolutely crucial that Queensland do develop this platform for innovation and encourage more Domino Pizza groups. Morgans, just a quick pitch on Morgans. Morgans was and is a Brisbane-based and founded company. We've actually developed our business to over 60 offices across the country, really founded on the back of helping groups like Domino's. We were involved in their IPO back in 2005, helping startups and emerging companies in funding their dreams. I'm just going to very quickly give you a few insights on why we believe innovation is important and why now, and I'm going to do that from a bit of an investor's perspective. So why and why now? Okay, well, we heard some speakers, some very, very capable speakers this morning, very eloquently put it and express the need for capital and the competition for capital. Globally, there is a huge amount of competition for capital. There's some great ideas, some great innovators out there, and there's a bit of a race to come first. So we need to create that platform to ensure that we attract that capital to Queensland and to Queensland businesses. We also need to develop that platform where we actually attract the talent and the businesses such as Domino's and create that culture. Now, that involves a number of things. It includes making sure we have stable government policies, appropriate ones, but more importantly, in our view anyway, it also means that you've got to have that education, you've got to attract that talent pool, and you've got to have that depth. Without that, basically investors will look elsewhere. Investors invest in people. When we're also looking at why now, we also can point to, from an investment point of view, the fact that globally we are in a quite unique situation where cash rates are unprecedented lows across the world. So there is, and Mark I think put it before this afternoon, he commented that there is appetite to fund some of these investments and some of these opportunities. Part of the reason for that appetite is because of those cash rates, they're looking for a better return. Mark talked about the self-managed super funds and people willing to take on more risk. That is real, that is true. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean everybody can come and approach me at the end of this session and go, excellent, can I have a checkbook? I need this much cash, what can you do for me? It was also discussed by Nina and Mark today around you have to match your investors with your outcomes and objectives. You have to get that alignment. It's looking at tapping into those networks and ensuring that you get that alignment between the two groups, otherwise it can end and will end in tears. Some of the success determinants, I mentioned the supportive environment. Don actually there mentioned that you've got to create that platform for innovation. The value proposition, again, it was mentioned this morning by Dr. Carlton, I thought very eloquently when he mentioned defining your value proposition. You have to define the NABC. And I thought that was an exceptional way of putting it, and it's something that we live and breathe by, that you need to identify that need. You have to understand how you're going to access and get to those markets. You need to look at the benefits, and you need to understand your competition. If you can't define those and then redefine those, you're going to be struggling to get funding. And finally, you've got to back the people. I mean, Don is an inspiration not only to everybody in this room, but most certainly to his organisation, and that's evident in the fact of the share price performance and indeed just the business performance over the last 10, 15 years. So you've got to back those people, you've got to look for the leaders, and they've got to look at themselves as well and build a team around that, and that's what investors will look at. There's a good quote, which I'm going to steal from John Bates of the London Business School, who I think defines pretty well, was he expressed the attributes to be a successful entrepreneur in a linear way, as a formula. He said, basically, you need flexibility plus persistence, and that equates to judgment. And then with judgment plus luck, you get success. And I thought that was a pretty neat way to explain it. So look, in closing, as I know there's some beers and some wines to be had outside, I think the final piece of that jigsaw from our perspective and from an investment market is we need to create that platform. You need to actually celebrate the successes. You need to celebrate and promote the innovation that's going on in Queensland and support those and learn from those. So we need to look at the likes of Domino's, the likes of Corporate Travel Management, the likes of NextDC, AP Eagers, UniQuest, Flight Centre, all of these fantastic, great stories. They've emerged from very little and become huge successes. So with that, I'll close. I'd like to thank you again for your attendance and enjoy the rest of the evening and the rest of the conference. Thank you.
Thanks, Roger.